All right, I want to welcome our listeners to Kennesaw Happenings. In the studio, we have Jim Layton. We've known each other for about 25 years or more. And so I wanted Jim to come in and really kind of share a little of his story. And we're going to dive into some cool stuff today. So I'm going to ask Jim to introduce himself and just tell our viewers who he is, what he does, and who he serves. And then we're going to get into a little bit of his story. Thank you. All right, Jim.
Pete soft pitched that one when he said who he serves, because he knows who I serve. There's only one God, the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yes.
So I'm Jim Layton. And like Pete said, we've known each other for beyond 25 years. I think when I went through cancer and had 130 rounds of chemo on the other side of leukemia, here I am. Yeah, I thought it was my short-term memory, but it was Pete's. So we've probably known each other for 35 years, maybe. So yeah, Pete's been a great inspiration. He's what I consider one of those coaches, like a Bobby Knight of the world, who pulls the best out of the players. And we are in a I wouldn't say it's a game, but we are in a on a stage, and the fight's not between us and the devil. The fight's between God and Satan, if we read scripture and the way scripture says it. So thanks for having me, Pete. We've been trying to get together to do this.
Yep.
So
it's a real pleasure. And I'll go back to the introduction. I'll just take golfer Pete, not Bobby. but we have had a very fun relationship of just sharing life. And so I wanted to give our viewers an idea of really who, I mean, obviously when we stare death in the face, it changes the way we look at life. And when I knew you, Jim, I knew you before you got sick, and then I knew you during, and now I know you after. So I think for our viewers, it's a beautiful thing to kind of give them an idea of that journey. Now, we don't have all the time, but we can have you back on for sure. So I want to ask you, when you were diagnosed and you looked at your situation, what was your thought process when you were thinking okay, this might be it?
Looking at it from, and I only can look at it from a Christian standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid to die. A Christian shouldn't be afraid to die. The fear of death is probably not when we're going to die, it's how we're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I found that out. I thought, oh, this is how I'm going to die. And you really realize that death is for real. And I really thought I was on my deathbed when you start praying for your wife's next husband, things are real. Mm-hmm. And when they told Susan that I was going to die in 18 months, it wasn't, and I don't mean this boastful, God put this in me, but it wasn't, why me, God? It was, okay, now what, God? And so there were so many opportunities at Emory to share Christ and to let them see the calmness within me that God put it in. I didn't go muster this up. I didn't put these wires together. God put this together.
Right.
And so God gave me that calm. And if he can calm and speak that into storms that are physically in Bible days real, and people were on boats watching this happen, he can speak that into our life. And he did that for me. I was told I was going to die through my wife, because they didn't tell me, but they told Susan, 18 months. Mm-hmm. And that was 21 years later. Here we are.
Well, I do remember when we came over to visit you with Dennis Puckett, and you were a little thinner than you are today. Just a tad. I mean, you were like skin and bones.
Yes.
And so, I know for viewers looking at you today, they're going, man, he's a healthy, strong, vibrant person. Well, I can assure you he wasn't like that. How many years ago was it? 21?
Yeah, 21. I was watching the anniversary of 9/11
mm-hmm.
at Emory in my bed.
Wow. Yeah. Dang. So I know our viewers always can relate to storms, maybe not the storm that you went through. So when you realized that you were getting healthier and that your days here on earth might be longer, what did that change in your mind? Did it do anything for you, just the way you thought about things?
Susan gave me probably one of the biggest compliments I think that one could ever get, especially from a spouse. Someone said to her, Susan, God's going to use this to get Jim's attention. And she said, no, I know him more than anybody on the face of this earth. He is who he says he is. God's already had his attention. And we're going to pray that God will use this to get someone's attention. And so the pennies with the cross that I make pass out. I never bargained with God. God, if you do this, I'll do that.
Right.
I was already doing that before this came.
Right.
Speaking of leukemia.
What would you say? I mean, when you brought me home from the airport a couple weeks ago, and we bumped into somebody here at Overture, and it's like it's part of who you are, sharing a cross penny. Why don't you share with our viewers what you do as far as just maybe shining some sunshine on people? What do you do during the day? I know you have a pocket full or some pennies with crosses in it. Take our viewers through that when you just run into somebody.
Well, when we were in the hallway getting ready to open the door, you introduced me to one of your neighbors, a resident down the hall, and you told me that she was a great artist, and she started talking about her paintings and stuff. And I always am looking for that inroad conversation. How can I pull this penny out of my pocket and hand it to somebody and interrupt somebody's day with the conversation of the cross? So when she started saying that she was an artist, I know an artist. I told her, I said, I know you're going to know him too. So when I mention his name, he's one of the great well-known artists, and I know him personally. And when I pulled this out, I know that God has let me live another 21 years beyond leukemia to watch people's reactions to the cross. And, as I think about the home, and here we are in Pete's home, and we are right down the road, down the hallway from her home, maybe 18 times in the book of Acts, it was talking about the church, but 39 times it was talking about the home. And they went into people's homes a lot. And so hopefully this podcast will go into so many homes. And my story, along with Pete's, combined with the story of the gospel, will motivate someone to say, I could have done that all the time. We were talking about just now, before we walked into his apartment, we were talking about the elevator and things that we take for granted when we have that full bill of health. Just hit the button, go up, convenience. Instead, Pete and I walked up 4 floors. And I think that within all of us who are believers, we have that convenience of, I don't want to call it this, but fire insurance. We all have it. Now let's just take it to another level and say, I can do this. I can interrupt somebody's day without being rude and say, hey, do you know him? In special ways. We could take up the whole day of me telling stories about passing these out. But it is simple. It's easier than you would think. It's very easy. And people don't mind to be interrupted because you know what? Their eternity is at stake. Yours has already been taken care of, you Christians that are listening. Let's help someone else, because when we get there, I don't want to, it says, they that be wise will shine as the brightness of the firmament. I don't want to get to heaven and shine like the little bulb that you plug into the wall. I want to shine, not for my glory and for my sake, but for eternity's sake.
Of course, I knew you before leukemia, and I knew you as an outgoing person that always really welcomed conversations about people's faith. do you think that going through leukemia, what in your mind changed, if any, your sense of urgency or your fear of rejection? Because I know I've had conversations with people and they say, I don't want them to think I'm a Bible thumper or a weirdo, so they don't say anything. So what would you tell our viewers, like, before leukemia, and how outgoing you were and vocal about your faith versus going through that storm? What changed there?
I wouldn't say the outreach for me witnessing to people had changed. Like Susan said, no, he is who he says he is.
Mm-hmm.
I was sharing my faith before cancer.
Right.
I think that when I got saved out of the carnival business, God had radically changed I didn't even know God was in the life-changing business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for goodness sakes, when I got my first Bible and it said J-O-B in one of the books, I was so naive to the word of God and the things of God that I'm thinking, why is there a book in here called Job? Didn't know it was Job. Didn't know I was going to be a mini Job
Mm-hmm.
in today's time,
Right.
losing the things that I've lost. And I don't know that part changed. The part that changed was my opportunity to add to the story that God was doing in my life. So he has given me a different platform that I would have never had, to go back to the halls of Emory and to walk around on that 6th floor, knocking on the door, saying, can I come in and give you some company of encouragement? That radically changed. That was over the top. That I think some of the listeners who were perfectly healthy,
Mm-hmm.
they probably couldn't have that opportunity to knock and say, hey, can I come in and give you some company of encouragement? And if they say yes, then where are you going from there? Yeah, you could share the story of Christ. But when you start saying, for example, a lady said she was lying in her bed sideways. And when I knocked, I didn't know she was on the phone. And she went, I already have some. Thank you. And I said, ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't notice you were on the phone. I didn't mean to bother you. This was my bed 4 years ago. Hold on just a second. Come back. And I came back 40 minutes later and was able to share Christ with that lady.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, those situations and things that, that the stories that you now are able to capture because you've been through, staring death in in the mirror, and now being on the other side of it. What let's go back, because I know every kid out there has been to the carnival, the state fair, So what was it like growing up before you accepted Christ and you made that transformation in your life? What was life in the carnival business like before, and now what is it like after?
It was a mess. I was born and raised in that industry. My dad and mom were in the business, and I was in a stroller as they were conducting business. We had games and rides and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then as I got older, I told my dad, I said, I'm quitting school. So I was 2 years short of graduating. And I told my dad, I said, you told me reading, writing, and arithmetic. I got it. As a 17-year-old, you think you got it. When you look back as a 62-year-old, you're like, oh my goodness, was I dumb? Yeah. I was not some dumb. I was plumb dumb. And so my dad, he, 8th grade educated man, said, okay. And off we kept traveling on the road, making money. And that was my God. Mm-hmm. It was big some days, it was small. I went to Las Vegas one time. Mm-hmm. And I had thousands of dollars in my pocket as a young man, mm-hmm. a high school dropout. And I told Dad I make more money than 2 teachers. I thought that was it. I thought I arrived. And So when I went to Vegas, if I gambled in one, I was mad because I didn't bet more. And if I lost, well, I couldn't handle winning, and there was no content at all. And the first time I believe I heard God whisper was then. And he said, nothing here, not talking about Vegas, but here on this earth, nothing here is going to satisfy you except me. And I went home to find out who me was. I pulled out a drawer, had a bag of marijuana. Hope my kids don't hear this because they don't even know this yet. There's some things I haven't shared, but nonetheless, God's changed me. And once you know that God has forgiven you, you don't care who knows what about it.
Right.
So I said, Mom, I don't know if you knew I did this or not. 5 flushes later, it was gone. Fast forward, I was a preacher's kid overnight back into this high school. And so I lived with the pastor's wife, the 3 kids, and ended up marrying the preacher's niece.
Wow. So that's pretty cool. I mean, how God put you and Susan together. So why don't give our viewers at 62, what do you feel like God is teaching you today versus 10, 15 years ago?
To always be listening for that voice, that small opportunity, that window of now you can talk to them about me. And then to make sure that it's not just me forcing the conversation, because I've done that and it has gone nowhere. And I've also done it with the wrong motive. I've given these pennies to the person at Taco Bell and ordered a small drink. I don't do this anymore, but ordered a small drink. And then after they already got the penny with the cross, I said, hey, can I give you some more money for a large drink? Oh, here, don't worry about it. And so the cross has not got me just salvation. It's got me supersized my meal. And so I don't do that anymore, but I remember doing it last night. This is crazy as all get out. I had a dream that I was driving by in a unique vehicle. I don't know what it was, but I saw this like a car show. And there were some Arabs or oil looking, they all dressed in white. And they all had these white limos. And I had this thought, turn around, go back and share. And then I knew, no, your motive is you're just wanting to go share because they could throw you $1 million in a heartbeat and not even think that they lost a nickel. And so my motive even in that dream was wrong. So it's to keep my motive right.
Right.
God sees not only what we do, but he sees why we do it. That I don't know that much has changed.
Yeah, no, I think you have always been true to who you are in the time I've known you. And 6 months will go by and we'll catch back up. And it's like 2 days have gone by. It seems like there's a lot, one, in common, but two, you're consistent through everything you do. Why don't you tell our viewers, because I've always love the stories that we would talk about in the carnival business, because, I think so many people participate in that, the North Georgia State Fair, the different fairs out there. So what are you doing? Are you still connected to the carnival business? What are you doing? Or are you completely retired?
I am. It's neat to see the way God has worked as you look back, not knowing tomorrow, or that I wouldn't even want to be the all-knowing God, knowing 20 minutes down the road that if I leave here and get in a car wreck and it's over, I wouldn't even want to know 20 minutes from now. So, but looking back, it's been a great ride. It's been very interesting. I'll give you a story of going to Raleigh, North Carolina. I saw the lady at the gate. I'm driving in and she lets me in, and it's hard to get in there through some of these gates. And she's like, I remember you were here last year. And so she says, well, park your car on over there. And so I parked, and So I'm starting to walk through the gate now, and I come back up to her and her friend, and she said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Of course I do." She said, "Well, what's my name?" I knew when she said it, I should have remembered her name.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't remember right now." And it wasn't because of short-term memory loss because of 130 rounds of chemo.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I flat out couldn't remember, but I knew I should have. And she said, "It's Penny." I said, "Of course it is." And she said, "You gave me a penny with the cross last year, and I still got it." And
Wow.
she said, "This is my friend. She's going to be with me." And I looked at her and I said, "Hey, I'm going to come back and give you some penny, a penny with the cross that she's talking about." Excuse me. And I said, I'll give you one tomorrow for sure. Um, so the day goes by, and I give away all the pennies that I had in my pocket, and I go back to the car. The next day shows up, and I had traveled there. There's significance in this reason I'm telling that this pair of pants that I came with was brand new.
Right.
Never had them on. But the reason I took them was they packed well because they were brand new and really folded well. So I just took a brand new pair of pants that Susan had bought me 2 months earlier, and they'd just been sitting there. And so I unzipped the pocket, the pant leg pocket, and I put a handful of pennies in the pocket. And so I go to the bathroom where the porter was keeping the place clean for everybody at the fair. And I said, "Hey, yesterday I told you I'd come back and give you a tip." I said, "Here." And I thanked him for keeping the bathroom clean. And then I reached to my pocket to give him a penny. And I went, "Oh, well," he thought I was hurting or something was wrong. And he said, "Sir, are you okay?" Nobody ever asked me that when I didn't have gray hair and I was old. But I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." I said, "I just had something in my pocket I wanted to give you. It's gone. They're all gone." He said, What is it?" I said, "I make these pennies." And I punched the cross out. "And I wanted to give you one." He said, "Well, it was the thought that counted." He said, "Well, thank you for this." And I said, "Well, I can't do that every time I come to the bathroom. But if I can find one, I'll come back and give you one." But I'd already promised the ladies at the gate.
Right.
I walked out of the bathroom and I heard from heaven, "Jim, for 30 plus years, I've given you credit for all those pennies, all the times that you shared me with others. I've given you credit. Today, I'm passing them out." And there was a hole in my brand new pair of pants. That pocket had a hole in it.
Yeah.
I could get it if there was a old pair of pants. Not a brand new pair. And so I'm like, "Oh my goodness." I said, "But Lord, I need two." And I started wandering around looking for 2 pennies, and I couldn't find 2 pennies. Well, I told this story to probably 5 of people that I knew in the carnival business. And so the day goes by, and I've already shared the story. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting down, and I felt something in my shoe.
No way.
2 pennies had fallen through the pant leg. And 2 landed in the shoe, and a handful are on the ground somewhere in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I just thought, how I couldn't live 1,000 lifetimes to put that story together.
Right.
Only God can do it in one lifetime.
Man, that I love to close with an insight. That's almost like, I can't top that. You can't top that, because that is, you can't make this stuff up. It's just, it is. But we could talk all day long. And I know that, in this day and age, you have some pennies to share. So we want to encourage you to do that. And how can people, like, this is the Kennesaw area, somebody wants to get a penny and be able to connect with you, how would they do that, Jim?
I would say your listening audience would know you first of all.
Okay.
I'll leave some with you.
Okay.
You can figure out the logistics of getting them to and fro to the audience. Susan and I make these at home. You put the penny face up where the cross is facing up on the president's head, it looks kind of silly if you put it sideways.
Mm-hmm.
So every one of these pennies gets laid in there, spun, faced the right way. And it's not just automatic, especially as I get older, it just doesn't flow through. But I don't have a machine. It just goes. Some people have come over to the house and can I have some pennies? Well, after I give them, I'm like, why don't you come over and make them? And once they do, they're like, oh my goodness, so it's not like going to the bank saying, give me a load of pennies, and then they automatically appear with the cross punched out. What I would like is an idea. I have a drawer full of the inserts. If someone has an idea of what to do with the inserts, I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you obviously have
35,000
really
of these have been given away.
Oh, I think our viewers can come up with some good ideas there. My golly, yes, yes. So if you're in and around Overture, which is near the Academy Sports and Hobby Lobby, stop on in. And we'll see about getting you across, Penny. And, I like how you let our viewers know it's not like in a mass production society, you go through one at a time. It's almost like the love that you do when you're passing them out. You're doing it with the creating of the penny, one strategic time at a time to really put that penny together. So that's good that our viewers can understand that. So I want we'll put some information in the show notes. So if somebody isn't around here and they want to come and they want to have a cross penny to be able to hold and carry, just let us know and we'll get you one here at Overture. So Jim, I always like to leave us. You've already hit it out of the park with that last story, with the hole in the pocket. What would you want our viewers to take away from this podcast as we close out?
Obviously it's got to be a spiritual note. God, how can you use me to help others? Zig Ziglar said this one time in his book, and I saw him personally at his Sunday school class in Dallas as I was going to a carnival convention.
Yeah.
But he had mentioned in his book, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And that has stuck with me over some of the sayings of going through Bible college and stuff, knowing that all the quotes and things I had to learn, but that is one of the top it's up there. So you guys that are listening, thinking, how can I do this? Because I know God's put a desire in your heart. If you've listened this long and not turned us off, you have a desire to say, God, how can you use me to help others? Because doing that, God will help you get what you want. Do it with a right motive. I don't do this with a hidden motive. I only did it at Taco Bell a couple times for a beer, but now it's people's eternity is at stake.
Yeah.
And whether you do it or don't, God doesn't need us. He just chooses to use us. And so because of that, I'm so blessed. I'm so thankful to know you over the years, thankful that technology, God has been able to take and allow the internet to be a good thing. And so here we are in your home, like I mentioned in Acts, it's 39 times versus 18 times. Now, I'm not saying don't go to church anymore, but I am saying I'm glad to be in your house. I'm glad that you gave us this time to share how we share.
Thank you, Jim. And I just want to encourage our loyal viewers, if you want to share this with somebody you think would be out there, then please share it, because Jim's story is a unique one, just like everybody's story, but there's more to it. And we're going to have Jim back on our show and after the first of the year, and we're going to be talking more in depth. But thanks, Jim, for being on the podcast and really sharing your story with our viewers.
Thanks.
All right, you bet.